She friend-zoned me for years, then lost it when I got a girlfriend. You can't replace me, she screamed, while destroying my bike. So I made her pay. Naomi friend-zoned me, kept me close for 3 years, and then lost her mind the moment I got a girlfriend. She actually yelled, "You don't get to replace me," while she was trying to destroy my motorcycle. So I made sure she paid for every bit of it. My name is Milo. I'm 25, and I work in aviation safety certification for one of the aerospace contractors in Huntsville. My job is to review flight software compliance documentation and make sure everything meets federal standards before it ever goes into real aircraft systems. It sounds dry until you understand the stakes. One missed checkbox can delay certification for 6 months. One sloppy review can put a whole program at risk. The job pays well and the security is solid, mostly because nobody wants airplanes falling out of the sky. But there is one thing about this industry that matters for the rest of the story. Your professional reputation is currency. Everything runs on trust. One HR flag, one whisper about misconduct, one rumor that makes people hesitate before assigning your name to a project, and doors start closing before you even know they were open. Managers distance themselves quietly. Coworkers stop putting you in important conversations. It does not always matter whether the accusation is true. Sometimes the association alone is enough to stain you. Remember that because it mattered later. I met Naomi during my first week at the company. I was 22, fresh out of college, with an aerospace engineering degree, and I had exactly 0 practical experience. Naomi worked in facilities management. Same building, different floor. We started with small talk at the lobby coffee station, and that turned into actual conversations. Then, numbers got exchanged. Within a month, we were getting lunch together twice a week. Before anyone starts with the idea that I was some desperate guy sitting around waiting for a chance, that was not what this was. Not at first. What we built looked like a genuine two-way friendship. When the transmission blew on my Civic and left me stranded at Research Park on a Monday morning, Naomi drove over on her lunch break and handed me her car keys for the week without hesitating. When her apartment flooded because a pipe burst upstairs, I spent an entire Saturday helping her move furniture into storage, and she crashed on my couch for 3 nights until the damage got fixed. When her car got towed downtown from a confusing no parking zone, I drove her to the impound lot at 7 in the morning on a workday. It was mutual then. Real favors, real effort, both directions. But Naomi was only one part of my life, not my entire schedule. I was taking a motorcycle rider course on weekends. I was going to the gym 4 days a week. I had my own social circle through Scott and a few other guys from work. I was not sitting around with my phone in my hand waiting for her to text me. I had things going on. About 8 months into the friendship, I asked her out. Directly. No games, no weird hints. We were walking through Big Spring Park after grabbing lunch from a food truck, and I told her I liked her as more than a friend. I said I wanted to take her on an actual date. She did this thing where she smiled, but her eyes went sad, like my honesty had put her in an uncomfortable position. She told me she valued our friendship. She said she was in a weird place with dating. She had an ex she was not fully over, someone who had moved to Atlanta. Timing was complicated. She did not want to mess up what we had by rushing into something she was not ready for. I took that at face value. Fair enough. I backed off romantically and committed to treating her like a friend, because that was what she had asked me to be. If she changed her mind, she could tell me. If she did not, that was fine too. My career was starting to pick up. I had just bought a motorcycle I had been saving for, and life was good. Here is where I will be honest about what I noticed but did not act on yet. The door never fully closed, and that was not an accident. Naomi would call me at 11 at night on a random Tuesday because some guy she was seeing had flaked on plans. She would drive to my apartment, fall asleep on my shoulder during a movie, then hug me for 30 seconds at the door and text, "I love that I can always count on you," with a heart emoji. She invited me to a coworker's wedding as her +1 because she did not want to go alone and deal with questions. At that wedding, she introduced me to everyone as her person. When the coworker's aunt asked if we were together, Naomi laughed and said, "Not yet, but who knows what the future holds," while squeezing my arm. Then she rested her head on my shoulder during the slow songs. I registered all of it. Every touch that lasted a beat too long. Every text that landed somewhere between friendly and flirty. Every comment that implied a future she refused to actually choose. I just did not have the right word for it when I was 23. I filed it under "she is genuinely unsure" instead of what it really was. Maintenance. She wanted me interested but not pushing. She wanted me available but not demanding. She wanted the benefits of being chosen without ever having to choose me back. By year 2, I had mentally moved on. I dated a few women. Nothing lasted longer than a couple of months, but I was trying. Naomi always had opinions about them. The first one was kind of shallow, and Naomi said she was probably only into me because I had my life together. The second one gave off weird vibes, and Naomi said she did not think that woman really got me. Naomi framed all of it as being protective best friend stuff, but I started noticing the pattern. Every woman I showed interest in had some flaw that only Naomi could see. There was also this thing where Naomi would suddenly need me at very convenient times. I would mention that I had a dinner date on Friday, and that same Friday afternoon, Naomi would text saying she was having a crisis with a work project and asking if I could meet her for coffee to help her think it through. The timing would be right at 5:30 exactly, when I would need to leave. I still went on the date, but I remembered the timing. It happened more than once. At the time, I told myself she just had high standards on my behalf. Now I know she was running interference. One night, after a woman I had been seeing for about 6 weeks broke things off over text, Naomi came over with ice cream from that place on Clinton Avenue, and we talked for hours. At some point, she took my hands and said something I still remember clearly. "You're going to make someone so incredibly happy someday. And I hope whoever she is knows how lucky she is to have found you." Then there was a long pause. She held eye contact. "I just want you to always be in my life, no matter what happens. Promise me." Something about the way she said it felt off. It felt like she was asking me to sign a contract without letting me read the fine print. "I'm not going anywhere," I said. "But I can't promise forever on anything. Life changes. People change. I'll be around as long as it makes sense for both of us." Her expression flickered. That was not the answer she wanted. She recovered fast and said, "That's fair," in a tone that made it very clear she did not think it was fair at all. Looking back, that was me leaving myself a door without even realizing I was going to need it. My roommate Scott was the one who finally called out what I had been feeling but could not put into words. Scott works in cybersecurity for one of the defense contractors on the other side of Redstone. We had been splitting a 2-bedroom apartment near Research Park since I moved to Huntsville. It was a random Tuesday about 3 years into my friendship with Naomi when she texted asking if I could help move a couch to her new apartment that weekend. By myself, up 2 flights of stairs. The reason the guy she was currently dating had thrown out his back and could not help. Her boyfriend could not help, so her first call was me, asking me to spend my Saturday moving furniture for a woman who was dating someone else. I texted back, "Can't do Saturday. You should check TaskRabbit, or ask the apartment complex if they have move-in assistance. Some places have deals with local movers." She responded with a single K and did not text me for 3 days. When I told Scott about it, he nodded like I had finally passed some test. "Good," he said, because I was about to say something. "When is the last time she did anything for you that wasn't convenient for her, like actually went out of her way?" I started to answer, then stopped. I could not come up with one example from the past 12 months. "You've become a resource she manages," Scott said, "not a friend she reciprocates with. Big difference." Then he pulled up something on his phone to prove the point. In the previous month alone, Naomi had texted me 11 times. 9 of those texts were either asking for something or venting about some guy. The other 2 were responses to things I had sent first. I had texted her 6 times, and 5 of those were replies. Scott had actually counted. All the things I had been noticing but not connecting suddenly clicked into place. Naomi canceled plans with me whenever something better came along, but got upset if I was not available when she needed me. She went cold whenever I mentioned being interested in someone, but expected me to be her sounding board for every guy she dated. I was always the one driving to her side of town, always the one rearranging my schedule, always the one making space. I did not confront her. I just quietly started creating distance. I took longer to respond to texts. I said no to requests. I kept conversations shorter. I stopped volunteering for things. Then I met Ruby. Ruby worked at a different contractor doing structural analysis for propulsion systems. She was sharp, direct, and smart as hell. We met at a cross-company safety conference at the Von Braun Center. During a networking break, she accidentally spilled coffee on my laptop bag, apologized like she had destroyed an heirloom, and insisted on buying me a replacement. I told her it was a 4-year-old bag from Target that probably cost $15, and that it was genuinely fine. She laughed and said, "Okay, but now I owe you a coffee at minimum. Call it professional reparations." That coffee happened 2 days later. She showed up 5 minutes early. We talked for 2 hours without checking our phones. When we left, she said, "I had a really good time. Let's do this again." Then she texted when she got home. "Made it back. Thanks for today." That turned into dinner the following week. Dinner turned into more dinners. Within about 6 weeks, it had turned into something real. Ruby was the kind of person who would tell you your shirt was inside out instead of letting you walk around looking stupid all day. She worked on cars with her dad every Sunday, especially an old Camaro they had been restoring for 3 years. She had strong opinions about barbecue, specifically that Texas style was overrated and Alabama white sauce was underappreciated. She laughed at her own jokes before she even reached the punchline. The first time she met Scott, she beat him at Mario Kart 3 races in a row and did not let him forget it for a month. He respected her immediately. There was something else about Ruby that I did not fully appreciate until later. Her engineering brain did not shut off outside of work. She looked at problems the same way she looked at propulsion data. Figure out what is actually wrong. Figure out what to do about it, then do it. Some people might call that cold. I would call it the reason we survived what came next. I was happy, actually happy, genuinely happy. And I made the mistake of thinking Naomi would be happy for me. When I mentioned Ruby over lunch at a deli near the Space and Rocket Center, Naomi got quiet and pushed a tomato around her salad. "Just be careful," she said. "You know, you fall fast, and I don't want to see you get hurt again." That was a weird thing to say. I had been hurt exactly once in the time she had known me, and it was a mutual breakup after 2 months that I had processed within a week. But over the next month, Naomi started reaching out more. Random texts at odd hours, invitations to things she knew I would be busy for. She wanted to meet Ruby. She said it was important that she approve of whoever I was dating. The way she said it like she had veto power over my relationships should have been a red flag the size of a highway billboard, but I was still telling myself she was just being a protective friend. Ruby agreed to coffee with the 3 of us. Naomi was polite on the surface, but the questions came too fast and too pointed. She asked about Ruby's background, her career, where she went to school, how long she had been in Huntsville, whether she planned to stay long-term. It felt less like getting to know someone and more like an interview where Ruby had not applied for the position. Afterward, Ruby was quiet for a few blocks. Then she said, "She watches you like you're hers, like a possession that got misplaced, and she's trying to figure out how to get it back. I don't think she likes that you're not available anymore." I said Naomi was probably just being protective, long-time friend stuff. Ruby said, "Maybe," in a way that made it clear she did not believe that for 1 second. The escalation started about 2 weeks after that coffee, and the pattern was so clean you could chart it. First came guilt. Naomi started asking to hang out one-on-one specifically on Saturday evenings, a time she knew I usually spent with Ruby, because I had mentioned it in passing weeks earlier. When I said I had plans, she got annoyed. "You never used to be this unavailable," she texted. "It's like you don't have time for your actual friends anymore." I pointed out that I used to be single and had more free time. She read the message and did not respond for 2 days. Then she sent, "I miss when we actually prioritized each other," before everything changed. I typed out something honest, something about how I had not changed. I had just stopped being available around the clock for someone who only noticed me when I was not there. Then I deleted it. Petty texts do not fix anything. They only give people ammunition. Then one night she called at 10:30. I saw her name, set the phone down, and went back to what I was doing. It was the first time I had ever just not picked up. I texted her the next morning. "Saw I missed your call. Everything good?" She replied, "Must be nice to sleep so well while your friends are going through stuff." I did not respond to that one either. Next came the manufactured emergencies. There was an 11 p.m. crisis that turned out to be a fight with her mom about career choices. I listened for 20 minutes, offered some perspective, then told her I needed to sleep because I had an early meeting. She sounded annoyed when she hung up. Then there was a dead car battery at a shopping center on the south side, 25 minutes from my apartment, on a Saturday night when I was at Ruby's place, 40 minutes in the opposite direction. I told Naomi to call roadside assistance because she had it through her insurance. She said she did not want to wait for them. I told her she could Uber home and deal with the car tomorrow in daylight. That was standard advice. She replied, "Wow, okay." Maximum passive aggression. These were not real problems. They were availability tests, and by then I was failing them on purpose. Then she started showing up in person. One Saturday afternoon, Ruby and I were at my apartment watching a movie and eating pizza when someone knocked. I opened the door and found Naomi standing there with takeout from my favorite Thai place, green curry, the exact thing I always ordered. "Surprise," she said. "I was in the area and thought you might want lunch." Then she looked past me and saw Ruby on the couch. Her face went hard for half a second before she smiled. "Oh, hi. Didn't realize you had company." I took the food and told her we were in the middle of something. She lingered at the door for an uncomfortable moment, clearly waiting for an invitation that was not coming. Then she said she would text me later and left. Ruby raised one eyebrow and said, "Does she not know boundaries exist, or does she just not care?" "Definitely the second one," I said. The last test was a voicemail. Naomi's voice sounded shaky, almost tearful. "Hey, I know things have been weird lately, but I really need you right now. It's important. Please call me back as soon as you can." I called 20 minutes later because I was worried something was actually wrong. She answered sounding completely normal. No distress, no tears, nothing. When I asked what had happened, she said she had figured it out, but she appreciated me checking in. Then she tried to pivot into a long conversation about her dating life and how none of the guys she was meeting measured up. I cut it short. She sighed dramatically and said, "Fine, I guess we'll talk whenever you have time for me." That night, I laid the whole pattern out for Scott. He did not even look up from his laptop. "She's testing how much she can still extract from you," he said. "The question is, what happens when the answer is nothing?" People like this don't handle that well. I blocked Naomi on everything. I changed my routine so I was not using the same coffee station or the same parking deck. I avoided her floor completely. But the day before I finally blocked her, something happened. I ran into her in the main lobby. I was with two coworkers on the way to a meeting. Naomi saw me from across the hall and made a point of walking over. Big smile, hand touching my arm in front of them. "Hey, stranger," she said, loud enough for both of my coworkers to hear. "We should catch up soon. I feel like I never see you anymore." I gave her a flat, "Yeah, maybe," and kept walking. But I saw what she was doing. She was building a public version of our relationship that did not match reality. She was planting witnesses who would remember her acting friendly, not hostile. That was when I blocked her on everything. There were 2 weeks of silence after the block. I thought maybe she would move on. She did not move on. That was when everything stopped being annoying and started getting dangerous. She went after my career. Marissa, a coworker who had been with the company for about 10 years, pulled me aside in the break room. She had helped me navigate the unwritten rules when I was new, and I trusted her judgment. She asked if I knew someone named Naomi in facilities. Then her face changed into this complicated mix of concern and caution. "Someone's been talking," Marissa said. "I heard a rumor going around that you've been harassing a woman in the building, following her around, showing up at her desk uninvited, making comments." My stomach dropped. "That's completely fabricated," I said. "I haven't talked to her at work in weeks. I've been actively avoiding her floor." Marissa believed me, but she did not sugarcoat it. Even a fake HR rumor can stick long enough to mess with assignments, trust, and optics, she said. "In this field, investigation is a stain, even when you're innocent." I started documenting everything that same day. I backed up every text with Naomi. I reconstructed a 6-month timeline of interactions. I emailed myself a time-stamped summary so the record could not be disputed later. I asked Ruby, Scott, and Marissa to each write down what they had seen or heard with dates. Marissa had her statement to me by that afternoon. I also pulled my badge entry logs from the building security portal. Naomi's floor was not on there once in the previous 3 weeks. Clean record. While all of that was happening, the friend group was already turning on me. Within 2 weeks, mutual friends from work events started acting cold. They avoided eye contact in the cafeteria. They stopped responding to group chat messages. I sent a message about pickup basketball on Thursday and got 0 replies. A guy I had grabbed lunch with plenty of times walked past me in the hallway, looked down at his phone, and kept going. A guy named Anthony someone I played pickup basketball with near Montesano was the first one who actually told me what was going on. After a game, he pulled me aside and said he had heard I had treated Naomi pretty badly. When I pressed him for specifics, he got vague. He just said she had been talking and seemed really hurt. What things, I asked him. We were never together. We never dated. Then I told Anthony exactly that, flat and without emotion. We were never together. I asked her out once 3 years ago. She said no. I moved on. That's the entire history. If she's telling people something different, she's lying. He did not say anything for a second. Then he nodded like he was replaying Naomi's version against what I had just said. And the math was not adding up. Ruby took the news like someone who had dealt with this before. She had her own version. In college, a guy who could not handle being turned down and tried to poison every mutual friendship afterward. She did not waste time being upset. She went straight into fix-it mode. Stop engaging completely, Ruby said. No responses, no conversations at work, no explanations. Nothing she can twist into something else. Then she sat down at her laptop. Within an hour, she changed every password, enabled two-factor authentication on everything, locked down her social media, and created a shared cloud folder for screenshots and documentation. She named the folder Naomi's Greatest Hits. Then she looked at me and said, "Everything goes in here with dates. If this goes legal, we're not going to be scrambling to remember what happened when. We'll already have it organized." The first uploads were Marissa's warning, with the exact date and time, plus my badge entry logs showing I had not been on Naomi's floor. Then the burner account started targeting Ruby. Instagram messages came from brand new profiles with no pictures, generic usernames, and vague warnings about my character. Some of them mentioned details a random person would not know. My apartment complex, my motorcycle. Specific things that proved whoever was behind the accounts actually knew me. Ruby showed me the first one immediately. We blocked the account together. More followed over the next week across different platforms, same pattern. Ruby was not scared, she was annoyed. "This is pathetic," she said. Genuinely, deeply pathetic behavior. My motorcycle was a 2019 Kawasaki Ninja 400 I had bought used from a guy in Madison. I rode it to work when the weather cooperated and kept it in my assigned spot in the apartment lot. The first incident was a slashed front tire, clean cut in the sidewall, not a puncture from road debris. I reported it to apartment management. They checked the cameras but said the angle did not cover my assigned spot. I replaced the tire out of pocket, $160 plus the time and hassle to get it done. The second incident happened 9 days later. Deep methodical keying down the entire left side of the tank and fairing. Whoever did it took their time. I got an estimate from the body shop, more than $800 to repaint and refinish it. That one hurt. Scott and I installed a Ring doorbell and an extra camera covering the parking lot that same week. If the complex cameras were not going to cover that angle, we would cover it ourselves. The setup was not perfect because a pillar partly blocked the view, but it caught my bike spot from one direction. The third incident came 6 days after the cameras went up. At 2:15 in the morning, someone approached my motorcycle and poured something on the seat. The camera caught a figure in a dark hoodie face, partly obscured, but the body type and movement were familiar. At one point, the person looked up, probably checking for witnesses, and the parking lot lights caught roughly half of her face. It was Naomi, of course. Scott enhanced the footage with software he used for work. We could not prove it to courtroom certainty from the footage alone, but the height matched, the build matched, the walk matched, and she was wearing a distinctive olive green jacket with a specific shoulder patch I had seen on her dozens of times. The next morning, I found a folded note tucked under my mirror, 3 words in handwriting I recognized. "Miss me yet?" I photographed it with my phone before touching it. I made sure the timestamp and location data were visible in the image properties. Then I bagged the original in a Ziploc and put it in a folder I kept in my nightstand. From that point on, I only shared copies. The original stayed untouched. I added everything to the file and filed a police report that day. I brought the footage, the note, documentation of all previous incidents, and screenshots of the burner messages to Ruby. The officer said vandalism with that kind of escalating pattern usually pointed to a bigger situation, and he asked if I knew who might be behind it. I told him about Naomi, the history, the fallout, the messages, the escalation. He wrote everything down and gave me a case number. He told me to call back immediately if anything else happened. Ruby came with me to the station and sat through the whole thing. On the drive home, she was quiet for a minute. Then she said, "You need a lawyer now. This isn't going to burn itself out." She was right. Marissa connected me with an attorney named Caleb through her sister's law firm downtown. I met with him that Saturday and laid everything out. Caleb told me I had solid grounds for a protective order, but he warned me. Getting the order is step one, he said. People like this usually violate it at least once because they don't believe consequences apply to them. Document everything going forward. Keep those cameras rolling. When she violates the order, and she probably will, we use it to push for criminal charges. I asked about the workplace situation and the rumors. He said specific defamatory statements that damaged my professional reputation could be grounds for a defamation claim, but first we needed the protective order, one thing at a time. He sent a cease and desist letter the following Monday. The cease and desist made her worse. If anything, it confirmed to her that she still had an effect on me. 3 days after she would have received the letter, I got a text from a number I did not recognize. "You really think a piece of paper is going to make me go away? After everything I did for you? After how much I supported you? You'll regret this." I screenshotted it, forwarded it to Caleb, and filed it. Caleb called me back within the hour with clear instructions. Stop all direct contact. Do not respond to unknown numbers. Route everything through him from that point forward. Log every unfamiliar number that texts or calls with the date and content, even if I did not pick up. He said the threat text actually helped us. It showed she knew about the legal boundary and did not care. That same week, a woman who claimed she worked in corporate reached out through LinkedIn, asking about my professional availability for a new opportunity. Something about the phrasing felt off. I did not respond. I looked up the name. No such person existed at the company she claimed to represent. The LinkedIn profile was brand new, with 0 connections. Then my manager called me into his office and closed the door. Someone had filed an anonymous tip to the company ethics hotline claiming I had a conflict of interest involving a personal relationship with a vendor representative. It was complete fabrication. I did not interact with vendors. I barely talked to anyone outside my immediate compliance team. But an anonymous ethics tip required an investigation. Company policy, no exceptions. HR sat me down in a conference room and asked a series of questions about my work relationships and potential conflicts. I had everything ready: the cease and desist, the police report, the full timeline. I laid it out without getting emotional and showed them everything. The HR rep's expression shifted as she reviewed my documentation. "This is helpful context," she said. "We'll need to complete the investigation either way, but this is very helpful." It took 2 weeks to clear me. 2 weeks of side eyes from people who did not know what was going on, but knew HR had pulled me into a closed-door meeting. During those 2 weeks, I changed how I moved through the building. I kept all conversations in open areas. I avoided being alone in hallways or stairwells, especially near the facilities floor. I saved every meeting invite and every attendance log, so I had a verifiable record of where I was during work hours. It felt extreme. It also felt necessary. Even a cleared investigation leaves a mark in this industry. People remember you were investigated. They forget you were cleared. Your name quietly gets dropped from projects. That was the part that made me angriest. Everything else could be repaired or replaced. A tire, paint, a motorcycle seat, even friendships. But a professional reputation in aerospace, once it cracks, does not always come back. Then came the parking deck confrontation. It was a Thursday evening and the deck was half empty but not deserted. There were people around. I heard my name from behind me and turned to see Naomi standing by the elevator bank, arms crossed, blocking the most direct path to my car. She looked like she had been waiting. "We need to talk," she said, loud enough that a guy getting into his truck 2 rows over looked up. I stopped walking, but I did not approach her. "No, we don't," I said. "You got the letter. We're done." The letter, she laughed like there was something funny about it. There was not. You send lawyers after me? I was there for you when nobody else was. And this is how you repay me? She stepped toward me. I kept distance. You need to leave, I said. I'm not having this conversation. You don't get to decide that, she said. You don't get to just replace me and pretend I don't exist. I'm calling security. I pulled out my phone. She stared at me for a long moment, and there was something ugly behind her eyes. Then she turned and walked toward the opposite stairwell like she had made her point. I called building security anyway. I got the names of 2 witnesses who had seen everything. Security confirmed that the parking deck cameras covered that section and said they would preserve the footage under my existing case number. I added all of it to the file. The burner accounts kept targeting Ruby too, but we started noticing tells because whoever was behind them was not as clever as she thought. The same unusual phrases kept showing up across supposedly different accounts. One account slipped and referenced Ruby's work schedule, something only someone watching her would know. Another account was created within minutes of Naomi viewing Ruby's post through what turned out to be a mutual connections account. How did Ruby figure that part out? Because a friend of hers from college, someone who now lived in Birmingham, reached out and asked why a woman named Naomi had been messaging her with questions about Ruby. The friend thought it was creepy and wanted to give Ruby a heads up. Ruby added all of it to our shared folder with a note that said, Pattern number 14, same person getting sloppy. Then, Naomi showed up at Ruby's gym. Ruby went to a small fitness studio in Madison that she had been using for years. Naomi told the front desk staff she was Ruby's coworker and asked what times Ruby usually came in because she wanted to surprise her for her birthday. The staff mentioned it to Ruby the next time she came in. Ruby's birthday was 4 months away. Ruby and Naomi had never worked together. One evening, Ruby was on the treadmill and looked up to see Naomi sitting on a weight bench across the room. Not exercising, not stretching, just sitting there watching her. Ruby said their eyes met for about 2 seconds before Naomi looked away, casual as anything, like she was just resting between sets. She never actually did. Ruby did not confront her. She finished her workout at a normal pace because she did not want to show fear. Then she documented the time and date on her phone in the bathroom and left through a different exit. On her way out, she told the front desk staff what had happened. They offered to write up an incident note, and they did. Ruby checked her mirrors the entire drive to my apartment. She told me that night. Her voice was calm, but I could tell she was rattled underneath. This was not just online messages anymore. This was in-person surveillance. When I started apologizing for dragging her into it, she shut me down. You didn't create her, Ruby said. Stop apologizing for someone else's choices. We deal with it and move forward. That's it. The gym incident went straight into the protective order petition as evidence of stalking. 3 days before the hearing, one final message came from another burner number. You could have had someone who actually understood you, someone who was there from the beginning. Instead, you chose her. Enjoy watching everything fall apart. I saved it and gave it to Caleb. He nodded because it was exactly what we needed. The protective order hearing was on a Thursday morning in early November. Naomi showed up with her own attorney. She looked different from the Naomi I remembered from our friendship days. Thinner, tired, like she had not been sleeping well. Her lawyer tried to paint me as an obsessive ex making things up. He suggested I was the one pursuing her, that I could not handle rejection, that I was weaponizing the legal system to intimidate a woman who had simply wanted distance. Caleb laid out our timeline piece by piece, like a man who had done this before and knew exactly how to build a picture for a judge. He handed over a tabbed binder, color-coded and indexed with a printed timeline across the first 2 pages, and screenshot printouts behind each tab. The judge flipped through it while Caleb walked him through every section. 3 years of text history charted on a simple graph. Naomi had reached out 4 times for every 1 time I did. After I started dating Ruby, that jumped to 8 to 1. The fake emergencies that were really availability tests. The cease and desist that Naomi answered with threats. The camera footage of someone matching her description at my motorcycle at 2:15 in the morning. The handwritten note compared against a card she had given me years earlier. The match was obvious from across the room. The parking deck confrontation backed by 2 witness statements. The burner accounts harassing Ruby, some created within minutes of Naomi viewing her posts. One burner account using a phrase identical to something Naomi had texted me months earlier. The fake ethics complaint filed the same week as the cease and desist. Caleb made sure the judge noticed that timing. The gym front desk visit under a false story. The gym stalking witnessed by members who saw a woman sitting on equipment without ever using it. The judge asked Naomi directly if she had created the burner accounts messaging my girlfriend. Her attorney advised her not to answer. The judge noted the refusal for the record. Then he asked if she had been to the gym in Madison on the date in question. Her attorney objected. Overruled. Naomi admitted she had been there, but claimed it was a coincidence. She said she had heard it was a good facility. The judge looked at her for a long moment without saying anything. Protective order granted. Multi-year no-contact order. No contact with me, Ruby, or our families through any means. No coming near our homes or workplaces. No third parties. No fake accounts. But we were not finished. Caleb filed a civil suit for harassment, property damage, and defamation. The motorcycle repairs alone were more than $2,000 between the tire, the repainting, and the seat replacement. The fake ethics complaint had damaged my standing at a company where reputation is everything. For 2 weeks, I had been treated like a suspect at a place where I had worked for 3 years without a single issue. What she did had real costs, and she needed to pay them. The suit settled out of court 4 months later. Naomi agreed to pay for the motorcycle repairs in full, plus additional damages that covered my legal costs and then some. Payment went through the attorneys on a deadline, no personal contact. I cannot share exact numbers because of a confidentiality clause, but it was fair. I never spoke to her again after the hearing. The protective order held. Some mutual friends reached out afterward. Some apologized. Some were just curious. I did not engage with most of them. The people who mattered had already known the truth. Ruby and I moved in together about 6 months later. Newer complex, better security, working cameras. Once I asked her why she had not just walked away when things got bad. She looked at me like I had asked a stupid question. Because you didn't cause this, she said. And I don't leave when things get hard just because someone else is acting crazy. Scott kept the old apartment and finally got the dog he had been talking about for years. My career recovered fully. The ethics investigation went nowhere. HR noted that the complaint had been made in bad faith, and Marissa made sure the right people got the real story. In aerospace, your reputation follows you everywhere. Mine survived intact. I think about it sometimes. I think about how close I came to being the guy who stayed around indefinitely, waiting for someone who was never going to choose me, but was never going to let me choose anyone else either. Should I have drawn the line sooner? Absolutely. I spent too long being polite when I should have been blunt. That part is on me. But her response to losing access to me was not my fault, and it was not my responsibility. Caleb told me most people in my situation wait too long. They think it will stop on its own. They think documentation is overkill until they need it and do not have it. I got lucky. I had a roommate who called it out. I had a girlfriend who did not run and who had the instinct to build a case before we even knew we would need one. Being someone's backup plan is not friendship. It is a cage you build for yourself, one "sure I got you" at a time. One boundary you let slide at a time. Stay sharp out there.